Hey, you summoned a lesser maker. Today, we're gonna scratch build this following a white dwarf build guide. I found this article on Reddit, and if you'd like to be a part of this community build, you can find the details and the link to this in the description. If you'd like to build this build in particular, you can find the link to where I've scaled this up already for you. It's free on the Patreon without subscriptions or anything. So I'd just like you to be a part of the community build.
So this modeling workshop build guide is going to teach you how to make a fantasy townhouse. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to make it your own. I usually play MORDHEIM. These ideas will apply for you when you're making one of these build guides for your own game. When I'm cutting out these shapes that the template provides, I'm not being super accurate. Allowing myself to kind of be a little loose with these shapes will make the building intentionally wonky, especially when making a ruined building. It just adds a bit more character. And I'm also using two different materials. So I'm using foam core for a lot of this, but I'm also using pink XPS foam, 1/4 inch thick. And this is just gonna add a bit more variation. And not all buildings are built with the same material all the way through. So having a bit more variety is just going to add a little bit more to that story. Although this building is wonky, you do want to make sure that it's glued together really well and that all the walls kind of line up evenly. I did kind of trim the overhang wall a little short on one side, so I made sure to trim the slope of the roof down a little bit to compensate for that. And you'll be seeing me using some 3D printed bits. These are free without any subscription to my Patreon. So if you want to go grab those and download them, you can follow the link in the description. I do that because MORDHEIM is a free game and clicking that one download button gave me so much inspiration. So paying that forward to you guys, hopefully I can pass that inspiration on to you. I'm using cereal cardboard for the roof. As I'm tracing out the shape of the roof, I'm splaying out the top A-frames of the building to add a bit more dimension and make these walls not flat. This just kind of hints that the roof is heavy. I also arched the backbone of the roof as well, so that looks like it's almost giving out. Using a push pin and a rectangle of XPS foam, I made a chimney, and it was really simple. It's a nice little detail that I recently realized I kept forgetting. Once you have all these shapes put together, you can see that the little variations really add a lot to the overall silhouette. Now I'm going to show you the easiest way to do brickwork on buildings like this. The XPS foam takes impressions really well, and making a stamp tool out of an old paintbrush and crimping the soft metal into a square or a rectangle makes it really easy to punch in brick shapes. This saves you so much time because you don't have to get an XPS cutter and cut out a bunch of bricks and then glue them all in. You can add all that variation in one punch of a paintbrush. So there are a couple ways when you're doing all these added details like timber framing that will really make your building look pretty clean. Clothespins do a really great job of adding a consistent shape. Another thing I like to do is I like to cut off all the heads from Dollar Tree plastic animals. I think these animal gargoyles would be in MORDHEIM, and they add a lot of character to the building. I also have 3D printed bits like hanging signs, lanterns, and windows. Obviously you saw those at the beginning. These are absolutely free on my Patreon in the building accessories kit. You can find these all collected in the collections section. It's just my way of paying it forward, and if you find value in them, Patreon is only $2 a month, and it goes a long way to fund these weekly videos. I'm learning Blender, and I'm making a Skaven model that will be a Patreon exclusive. These STLs already have spikes modeled in them, so all you need to do is add a bit of hot glue and stick them right into the miniature, and it's ready to go. A lot of the time, I don't know exactly how a building will fit on my boards when I'm making them, so I like to build the entire building and then fit it into place and then destroy it once I have it in a spot I like. It kind of gives me that creative freedom in both places. And if there was a side of the building I didn't particularly like, oh no, it's destroyed, so it's not a huge deal. I decided to only have the second floor easily accessible, so I can start gluing in some wood planks. And I use popsicle sticks for that. I went to my scroll saw and cut off all the rounded corners, and then I just glued them in with white glue. To help soak up the extra glue, I poured in sand in the spots where the glue was kind of leaking out, and it also had the bonus of adding a texture. And then once I had all that, I didn't want to add a bunch of shingles to this roof, and since it was kind of dilapidated and already falling apart, I just added some more of those planks to the outside of the roof. And then to add more to that texture, I kind of charred off the edges, and it also had the benefit of kind of singeing off the fuzzy bits. I use self-adhesive cork with scallop scissors to do my shingles. It's basically a peel and stick. So just take off the amount of shingles that you want to put on the building, peel it off, stick it, and then you could just keep doing that all the way across the whole build. Now the self-adhesive isn't particularly permanent, especially gluing onto a wood surface like this. So I recommend going on top of everything with a Mod Podge or PVA glue coating. And this will have a bit of a double duty. It will seal the cork, it will glue down the cork, and then on top of that, it's gonna seal in all your foam bits. So if you go over with spray paint, it will have less risk of melting any of the foam. I always like to try something new when painting my miniatures, so I tried to use the sponge basically in its entirety on this whole building. There were some spots I had to use a brush. Then I wet blended some blue on all the timbers. Unfortunately, I kind of cover all this up later, but after that, I sponged on all the brickwork. I was going for a more mossy green stone look, and I do like the look of this. By the end of it, it looked a little too bright, so I sponged in some black on top of it, and I think that did a lot to add a lot more grime to this paint job. After painting in the dirt in the interior, I sponged on a green because I saw some German timber houses and I've been waiting to do this on a building. After that, I painted in all the shingles. I had some extra night goblin arms for archers, so I put that on all the signs to hint that maybe this was a Fletcher at one point. And then I painted in all the metallics. Like to do wallpaper for my interiors, so this is another free thing on my Patreon that you can download, and it's a really easy print to make your interiors really pop. If you have a printer, you can go check that out as well. And as we get to the final shots, I'd like to thank my Patreon members. Thank you so much to Leroy Feder, Caracol, Old School FRP, Burning Heart Custom Creations, James Anders, Hanover, Grim Drunk, Treborius, Andy, Corey, Mike, Nick, The Lich's Laboratory, Cabu, The Pessimist, Seb, Lori, RC3D, Jonathan, Fabiosauroso, Doom Chupacabra, Sinister Grackle, Silver Fishchin, C.J, The Enchanted Raven, What I Gotta Roll, and Be Up One. Thank you guys so much for your support. You guys really help make these weekly videos possible. Speaking of that, next week I will have off. I'm going up to Oregon to see my twin brother for the first time in a couple years, so I'm really looking forward to that. After that, we'll be completely back to the normal schedule. If you would like to take part of this community build, I'll need a picture of your build and your name on the Discord server by August 1st. If you'd like to participate, feel free to do that. I had a lot of fun with this build, and honestly, I know I say this a lot, but this is one of my favorite buildings that I've ever made, and I had a lot of fun doing it. Going back to these old methods kind of put a lot of things into perspective, and I really like the amount of character that these buildings had back in the day. So hopefully you guys give it a try, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys make. All right, have a good one.